Hi, I'm Ada Babineaux, the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival, and I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure you enjoyed our feature today, Black Feminists by Zanah Thirus. And we are just so happy and delighted that she has decided to join us today. So we're going to talk not only about the film, but about what this sister is doing, which includes a lot and very positive, very inspirational. Come on in, Zara. Come on in. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am well. You are just like amazing to me. I'm like, where have you been? Like, I'm just like, I hadn't heard of your name before. I was like scrolling through Women Make Movies and I came across you and I'm like, you've been kicking ass, girl.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. So you started to produce films in 2015.
Yes.
Just in 2015. So you
yeah.
So tell us a little about, because you started in 2015. Is that was after DePaul, after you graduated from DePaul?
So I graduated from DePaul with my master's in cinema production in 2017. So I dove into filmmaking in my graduate program, starting in 2015.
So what was your undergrad?
It was at Columbia College in Chicago, and I majored in marketing communication. Back when they had a marketing degree, they merged it with the business school and separated it from advertising. But at the time, it was a separate major as marketing communication with a minor in acting. And my senior year, I interned at a talent agency, and I thought that I wanted to be in front of the camera, but then I realized there was an entire world of production behind the scenes, and I was like, that's what I want to study. I also had been on an indie film set as an actress, and we were like 3 hours behind schedule, and I was like, who is running this? Like, who's running this? So I was like, okay, I want to be on the logistics side of things. I want to learn how to run the show. I wasn't at the time as interested in directing and creative. I'm like, no, I want to be the one to make it happen. So that's what prompted me to get my master's in cinema production. A lot of people thought I would go into directing, but I went into production. So that's how I got my start.
Well, okay, so you were named recently, I would say, from Cannes Film Festival, you were named one of the top 10 filmmakers for the decade.
Yeah, Diversity in Cannes is a movement at the Cannes Film Festival. They celebrated their 10th anniversary. It's a movement that promotes diversity and inclusion at the Cannes Film Festival every year. And so they selected 10 filmmakers to highlight for their 10th anniversary. And I was among a really incredible group of global filmmakers from all over. I was one of the U.S. filmmakers that was in the lineup for top 10 filmmakers of the decade.
So did you know that was coming? Or, I mean, how did that, how were you told about that? They just called you up today or what?
No, so the Diversity in Cannes showcase and the Diversity in Cannes festival is really awesome about following and keeping track of and just promoting filmmakers and highlighting Black filmmakers doing their own thing. It was like I think I knew before, like 2 days before the press release came out, that I had been selected, but it wasn't like, there was no like submission process. We were just chosen for what we were doing. So it was really shocking. It was exciting. It was very humbling. There's some really incredible filmmakers that are in that lineup. So just to see my name among them is really humbling for me. But yeah, it was an absolute incredible honor.
Mm-hmm. So rightfully so. Like I said, when you got your degree, you just took off running. You did, okay, I'm just going to blabber out some films this sister's done. Black Feminist, Unlearning Sex, Meemaw, Demons, Hourglass, Man Up. She has a podcast. She works in advertising. I mean, how do you do it all?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And honestly, I was in a film program that, like most film programs, they teach you to write these multi-million-dollar scripts and then go out to LA and pitch. that's the game. You know, you try to get either on set as a PA and work your way up, or you try to go out there with your script and sell it. And I was like, okay, I'm in school right now. We have access to gear, we have access to equipment, locations, we have access to all these things. I'm a producer, you're a writer, you're an actress, you're a sound mixer, you're an editor. This is my team. Why are we not making things? So I was the one in the program that was like, let's continue to make films. Let's just make stuff. You know, we have access to all of these things. Let's make films with the resources that we have. And so a lot of people I know graduated from film school with a, stack of scripts and maybe a thesis film. I left film school with a reel of like films that I had done. And one of those films being Hourglass. It was the first film that I had directed. I ended up winning Best Female Director at the Cineplay Film Festival for it. I spent $100 on that film. Wow. And it's literally a team of 3 people put it together. My friends acted in it. And it just, it made me realize that not everything has to be a blockbuster. So I kind of just stayed on that pace of writing scripts according to the resources I had available to me, because I want to be able to greenlight my own projects. So with that being said, Black Feminist, it was filmed for $1,200. All the crew and cast, they donated their time because they believed in the vision. We filmed in 2 locations, mostly in stairwells of an art center, and then in Airbnb. And it was really, the archival footage was public domain, or we were able to license it really, really cheaply. And it came together, really, really in a really awesome way. And that's that's just my philosophy for making films is to not look at the resources that you have as limitations, but more so as, opportunities. I only write according to what's available. I only write according to, who do I know that has this? Who can I collab with that has that? What is the most inexpensive way that we can get this done without compromising the quality? And with doing that, I'm able to have full autonomy over my work as well. Women Make Movies is an incredible partner for distributing my documentaries. They have 2 of them. Quelly TV is where Mima is streaming. There, Sophie TV, has a couple of my films. Amazon Prime Video has a couple of my films. And it's just really great to be in the driver's seat for these projects, even if they're on like a smaller scale. So I guess the way I'm able to just do it all consistently is because I'm doing it within my means. And I think that a lot of people get caught up, with trying to push out a project that's millions and millions of dollars and trying to get investors and crowdfund and all of these things, when I'm just like, I just want to make things. So that philosophy is one that I just took and ran with, and it's worked up until this point.
Well, as I look at your body of work, I mean, and we really need a Zanah retrospective. I'm looking at your stuff. But as I look at your body of work, I'm curious, how do you go about, like, okay, I'm gonna do I'm gonna tackle Black feminists. I'm gonna tackle sex. How do you like dream of what you're gonna do next? Or does the displeasure of something make you want to challenge it? I mean, how do you go about what's next?
Yeah. My philosophy as a filmmaker, I really am passionate about 2 things: about demystifying the micro-budget film process, because I think anybody can be a filmmaker. I really do. And then also about using film as a medium to drive social change. I think that the things as a director that I gravitate towards are nuance, and definitely dichotomy. I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to choose between, different parts of their identity. I don't think that that's true. I do think that 2 things can be true at once. And a lot of times we don't look at things in terms of a full spectrum. And so stories like Black Feminist, where we're talking about intersectionality in both the racial and gender oppression of Black women, are things that, through my lived experience, I wanted to tell, but also, I gravitate towards opportunities to not only create activist-centered work, but to educate. And that was, just an opportunity to do just that. So yeah, like the things that I'm inspired by are micro-budget, activist-centered films. My next two projects, one I just filmed a month ago in Atlanta. It's my first comedic short film. It's the 16th film I've produced and the 8th film I've directed. And it's a short film about a Black feminist couple planning a patriarchy-free wedding ceremony. And it's a comedy because, their friends and family think that they are crazy and outlandish for this commitment ceremony. But it was really beautiful to be able to see an all Black cast, be quirky and fun and whimsical. And we don't necessarily get to see Black characters in an ensemble, be that way in a film that still has a really important educational message. And then the documentary that I'm working on next that I shoot in May, that's called Daughter of Eve. And it's about dismantling hyperpatriarchy within the Christian faith. So we talk a lot about overshadowed women in the Bible, about holding the church accountable, so many different things. And, those are the types of stories that I just, again, through my lived experience, being raised Christian, being a Black feminist, wanting to see these things for Black women, Black people, Black filmmakers. That's what drives me as a storyteller.
Mm-hmm. I never really labeled myself, just in terms of feminist, womanist. I just never put a label on it. I just live my life and function and do what I do, So I know you commented that you were tired of the misinformation surrounding the nuances of Black womanhood and the feminist movement not being inclusive of Black women.
Yeah.
Or intersectional. But isn't that my understanding of feminist means that you're inclusive, that you're intersectional. So especially when you're dealing with race and gender and socioeconomic status, sexuality, orientation, all that. So what the misinformation, how did you go in terms about tackling that with this particular film?
Well, I think it was I took it from two different angles. There's people have a really bad taste in their mouth when it comes to the word feminist. Because as Black people, usually Black women have had to choose between their race and their gender. And notoriously, the feminist movement has been very whitewashed. It's been for middle to upper class white women. That's what it has centered. Mm-hmm. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Black women have been the backbone of the movement in terms of fighting for gender equity within the Black community for centuries, even though their work has been overshadowed. And so it was really, the misinformation came from people saying that feminism is a white woman's movement, as opposed to saying that white women overshadowed this movement. They overtook this movement. Like it was said in the film, they co-opted the movement like a lot of white people do with movements. Like that's just what they do. So we included clips of historians, talking about how feminism is not a Western American tradition. Women have been fighting for their rights since the beginning of time. Like that's just the way that it is. And so I wanted to tackle the misinformation of the idea that this was solely a white women's movement, A. B, I wanted to tackle Black feminism from the standpoint of, this is a part of Black liberation. A lot of people, when they think of Black liberation, it's very Black male centered, cis-het Black male centered, as opposed to thinking about all Black people and what that means for liberating all the different types of oppression within our own communities. And so it was really important for me to take an educational, a little bit of satire, like we had the narrator that was fun and quirky, but like definitely an educational approach to this because, being argumentative, being combative, that wasn't the approach I wanted to take. This is a really touchy subject in general. I wanted to bring in the scholars. I wanted to bring in the authors, the lecturers. I wanted to bring in the people who, studied this work. I also wanted to highlight, Black women who were doing this work dating back to the 1700s. I think that's as far as we went back in chapter 2 of the film. So yeah, there's just a lot of misinformation in about the movement in general. And like I said in the film, I'm somebody who looks at the definition of a term. I don't look at people's actions because people are hypocritical. So the very definition of the word feminist is a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes, that's absolutely something that I believe. Black feminists takes that a step further, and they look at how somebody's race, gender, class, sexuality are all intertwined and contribute to how they are oppressed, uniquely oppressed. And so I have no problem identifying as a Black feminist because it's just what I believe. It's everything that I'm about. So yeah, I feel like I rambled, but I hope that answered your question.
No, you did not ramble. But let me just say that, it's so weird. It's like whenever I would think about, whenever I'd hear the women women in film, women this, women that, I really didn't feel like they were talking about me. I just automatically, it's like unless the word Black is on it, because it didn't feel like I was a part of it, even though it was just women.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that? Did you ever feel
I think that, notoriously the face of women empowerment is whitewashed, just like everything is, but it's whitewashed. Like when we talk about Women's History Month and women empowerment events and panels, I'm tired of it being all white women. And again, notoriously, Black women have had to choose between being Black and being a woman. And I reject that. I don't wake up one day and be like, all right, I'm going to be Black today. Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to be a woman. And I'm going to go back to being Black. Like, no, I'm always Black. I'm always a woman. Both of these parts of my identity make up who I am, how I move through the world, and more importantly, how I am viewed and treated by other people. So I think that, it's just really, I absolutely have felt like, when it comes to anything pertaining to women's events, empowerment, speaking, being showcased, white women, that's the norm. And I think that this film challenges that, it definitely does.
It does it very well too. I love this. I love you just mixed, there was like satirical. It was satirical. It was funny. You put the serious history in there. I mean, I just love the way you mixed everything in. It was a very, very nice balance. How did you go about choosing the sister at the beginning, the actress, the storyteller? How did you think starting with that and then moving through the story?
So I wrote this film at my desk at work one day. I literally just wrote the film, and it started with, I always thought of it as a narrator, because in a way, I understand that educational films can be boring. I understand that educational documentaries can be very boring.
Heavy topics, yeah.
Yeah, very heavy topics too. So it's like, I wanted to find a way to keep the audience engaged. And I also think that it's funny. It's not funny, but it can be comical, how many times Black women have to jump through hoops just to prove something that is very, very simple.
Sisters.
Yes. Hoteps and Becky. Like the way she addressed people, I just wanted it to be real, funny, honest. And so I selected her because she's an actress that I've worked with before. And that's just her personality in general. So I was like, this is going to be perfect because you just kind of fit what I was looking for. So it just worked out. Nadira is awesome.
And I'm not gonna spend my whole time talking about this film, but I wanted to know, how did you go about your selection process in terms of who you chose to actually do the interviews?
Yeah,
you had people from Essence. You had some people you had a brother that taught sexual violence. Different folks, a minister, surgeon. How did you go about that process?
Yeah, so this film was done by a team of 3 Black women. We put this together. That was our core crew. And the first thing that I do with my educational documentaries is I will put together a deck. That deck outlines the logline, the synopsis, the topics, like the themes. And so I'll share that among my team. And once I lock in my production crew, then we start doing our individual like reach outs of like who we want to be a part of this project. For me, like I knew certain professors. My co-producer Maya, she is studying critical ethnic studies, getting her master's in critical ethnic studies and gender studies. So she's always tells people she's getting a degree in Black women, and so she, brought in scholars that she knew. She also brought in the physician that was there. Like she was very integral in being like, this is somebody I know who would be great for this. Chan, who was our cinematographer and our editor, she brought in Gaylina, the pastor. So we all just kind of like put our heads together and reached out to folks that we knew. Greg, who is a sexual violence prevention instructor. He works with teens, with boys a lot. He's great. He's one of my friends that I know. So we literally just pulled together our resources and we're like, can you show up in this stairwell on this Saturday at 2:00 for an interview? And that's how it all came together.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So Chancey Smith, that's a sister or brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sister. Okay. So is that someone you typically work with, or do you move around to different DPs based on the type of project you have? How do you go about choosing your cinematographer? Yeah, DP.
When it comes to anybody on my team, any project that I usually look at their work and I'll say like, this is the style that I want. Chan she has a really good eye for making cinematography really yummy. That's like the best way that I can think about it. But like it's like, we worked with such, beautiful skin tones, and we had, Brick that we were working with, and she's really good with colors, and she's really good with bringing out the richness in something that's really that can otherwise be really boring or flat. Like we were in hallways, we were in stairwells, but she made it look, in terms of cinematography, she was integral in choosing, the overall look of it. And based on her previous work, she was fantastic at that. So I specifically wanted to work with Chan because of what her portfolio looked like.
Mm-hmm. So what about this? That's the last question I'm asked on Black Feminist. What about is it Khalid Films? How did that collaboration come about, and how did this partnership work?
Yeah, that's
did I say it right, Khalid?
And I'm hoping I say it right too. That's Chan's company.
Okay.
Yeah. So we literally just anytime I collaborate with a filmmaker in an integral like crew role and they have a production company, I make sure that their production company is credited.
Excellent. I love it. So when did you decide to make a shift to focus on shift your focus to emerging arts and activism through documentaries and narrative storytelling? And what were you doing before that? I mean, in terms of making the shift.
I was, I would say from 2015 when I started to like around 2018, when I was really just focused on building my portfolio. That was my goal, was to collaborate, to hone my skills, to figure out what type of filmmaker I was. Because first it's learning the process, then it's branding yourself, and then it's expanding your brand. So first I had to figure out like, okay, like what role do I want? Okay, I like producing, but I also like telling the story. So I don't mind calling myself a producer director, building my network, working the festival circuit, learning about distribution, figuring all of that out first, then saying, okay, like these are the stories I want to tell. If I'm not excited about telling the story, if I can't get this story in a classroom somewhere, if I can't get this story out into the festival circuit and it changes someone's life or perspective, I don't want to tell it. I don't want to just tell a general story. It just doesn't, for me, filmmaking is hard work. And if I'm going to be putting hours of time into this outside of my day job, then, I want to care about it. So I made the shift because I realized how much, with Black Feminists, I cared about this type of work. I cared about that project in a way that I hadn't before. So before that, I was just focused on building my portfolio. I'm really blessed now to be at a space where I'm really selective about the projects that I do. Because I'm not necessarily looking to build my portfolio anymore. I'm looking to continue to brand myself. So I'm in a different space, and it's great. It's really great.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That's that different space. So can you define Zanah Thirus?
Zanah.
I've been saying Zanah. Zanah. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
It's
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm named after my dad. His name is Zane. That's an easy
Oh, I
one.
was going to ask you what that meant. I was
Yeah.
asking to ask you the meaning. But can you define Zanah Thirus?
Um, I'm still working on that. I'm still working on like what defining me means because it's constantly evolving, you know. But I will say, like I said before, I am passionate about micro budget filmmaking and demystifying that process. That's why I started my podcast. Um, and I'm also just passionate about using films as a medium to drive social change. I think that everybody has a purpose in this world, and then those who are, focused on activism, everybody has a place in that activist work. It doesn't necessarily mean everybody has to be on the front lines at the protest. Some people are the protesters, the fighters. Some people are the storytellers. Some people are the educators. Some people are the visionaries. I definitely think that I fall in line with being a visionary and a storyteller. Because I think that with filmmaking, it evokes conversations, it educates, it frees people, it inspires people to change, to be the change. I think for me, it's hard for me to picture myself doing anything else because I think that I'm making the most impact by being a filmmaker this way. So I guess that's who I am as a filmmaker. Again, don't know if I rambled or answered your question, but I hope I did.
No, it's hard to define yourself. It really is. But I think your work speaks for you. That's like your child. I mean,
Yeah.
your child is your legacy. Like, that's what you leave behind, and that's
Right.
that's the way I look at each film as a child. That represents you, even before you even come into the room or speak. That represents you, who you are.
Yeah.
So you were homeschooled till you were 15. Was your mama an educator?
She is. Yeah. She is. I did a film on that. It's on Amazon. It's called Ready Set Adult. And it's about
what is it called?
It's called Ready Set Adult. And so it's about me and my siblings' homeschool journey, being homeschooled until we went to college at that young age. So we all had different experiences, some much tougher than others. But yeah.
I always think that's amazing when parents, I have one daughter and I was like ready to get her out the door so I could have my day because I worked from home. It was like, okay, I can't do this. You're 15 months. You got to go to nursery. I can't.
Yeah.
I always think that's amazing. So bless your mommy. Bless your mommy. That's amazing.
She wanted to, my grandma said like she would always have her stuffed animals and play school. Like she always wanted to have kids in homeschool. That was like her dream. So even when my brother graduated and went to college, like now she's a kindergarten teacher. She's still teaching. She loves teaching. That's what she loves doing. So you have to love doing it. I would never homeschool my kids. I'm like, I can't even think about like kids in general, but like homeschool, like no, that would not be it for me. But yes, it's what she truly wanted to do always.
That's
she
her passion.
do anything else.
Mm-hmm. That is her passion.
Yeah.
So I had read that you homeschooled till you're 15, then you started your career, your college career. So how was that transition in terms of finding yourself, who you were, what your passions were? Because you have acting and you've acted in some of your films, you produced, right? So how was that for you, shifting from homeschool to young adult, college to now?
Watch the film. I don't want to get into it.
I will.
Like it was, for me, it was hard. For me, it was really, really difficult going from one environment where you are sheltered, to an adult environment where you're going into a world where you're expected to have a lot more life experience than you do. And I started acting as an escape. It was easy for me to be somebody else. It was comforting for me to be somebody else. It saved me being able to escape my own reality. And that's how I got into acting. So it wasn't just like, oh, I like acting. It was, I always say this to people, acting saved my life. And then that's how being an actress and then being on these really bogus film sets. I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta run this because y'all don't know what you're doing. And so, yeah, that's how honestly how I got into it. So,
I always think that filmmakers are, I for lack of a better word, reject artists from something else. I used to be a dancer, so it's like my first film, I incorporate dance in there because I was like, okay, I'm not going to be dieting the rest of my life. I'm not going to be auditioning. I got to go.
Yeah.
So discovering Black independent filmmaking. I went to Howard. So discovering Black independent filmmaking, being under like a Haile Garima and all those folks there was just like, it opened my world, my brain, my mindset in terms of the power of film.
Yeah.
And giving you the confidence that you can do this. Because you always think film, you think Hollywood, you don't even see yourself in the equation.
Right.
So yeah, it's liberating and very therapeutic to a large extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you did things like you incorporate yourself in your projects. Like for instance, you did talk about unlearning sex.
Yeah.
And where that came about and why you chose to be so open during that film.
Yeah. So I center, I don't mind centering myself in a lot of my projects, just because I feel like I have a platform and I have a voice in a way that a lot of people can relate to these stories, but don't necessarily get to tell them. So I took the leap with creating Ready Set Adult and finally sharing my truth about, what I felt my homeschool journey to college was like and what that college experience was like. A lot of people assumed what it was like. And I was hearing a lot of, oh, I wish I was in your shoes, or I wish I graduated early. And I'm just like, you don't, you really don't. But then it was important for me to showcase my siblings' perspectives because they all had different experiences. So I took the leap with centering myself and putting myself and my story out there and sharing my truth with that film. And then with Black Feminist, I also was in that as well. As with my narrative films, I acted in Mima. I was the lead character in Demons. So I put myself in projects. And then with Unlearning Sex, that was never intended to be a film. It just happened. I went to sexual trauma therapy, and I chose a therapist who she specialized in narrative exposure therapy. So what she does is she helps people, specifically she loves working with intersectional folks. So she's a Black woman, a Black queer woman, and she helps people use creative mediums to help them heal. And so for me, I wrote everything down. I wrote everything down and documented my process for me. I initially started recording the therapy sessions because when I had first gone to therapy, I would always say, oh, like my therapist said this amazing thing, but I don't remember what it was. Like I cannot remember for the life of me. And so I started documenting it for the homework assignments. But then as I started listening back to the therapy sessions and redoing the writing assignments, and I realized how much I had changed over such a short amount of time. It was scary. It was scary what it was, being able to understand your trauma and unpack what you went through with the tools and the language that's necessary for healing. And I was like, oh, I want to have more of this discussion. So after the 6 months, I put together roundtable interviews with sexual trauma therapists and sex educators and intercut those together with the voice recordings from my therapy sessions. And that's how Unlearning Sex came about. And so it was licensed. It's licensed now by Women Make Movies for trauma therapists and educators to use as a resource, but then B, also for like sex ed programs. And it's my most festival selected film to date. It won Best Human Rights Film at the Toronto International Women's Film Festival. It was selected at Real Sisters of the Diaspora International Film Festival. And these are all activist-centered festivals, and the Q&As have been amazing, bringing in sex educators and therapists to just open this world of a topic. And not just showcase, you know, the trauma, but also the healing. I think that was really important because we don't necessarily get to center Black women survivors, but we also don't get to see what healing and growth can look like. So that film just kind of came together, and the reactions, the responses, everything to it has been absolutely incredible, better than I could have ever imagined. So that's how that just came about.
So there is power in exposing your truth or telling your truth.
Yeah,
so many people, there's so many people that live with it bottled up.
Yes, because I think it's also because there's a real fear of retaliation. There's a real fear of what will people think. And I was very strategic with this film. It's not available to the public. It's not available to screen without being accompanied by a facilitated discussion. You know, it's only screening at Social Justice Film Festival, where the spaces are going to be welcoming to this type of topic. And I made sure not to make this a traumatic film. You know, there's so much documentation I did not share. I only shared what was necessary for people to understand the subject matter, and then accompanied that with, you know, the interviews, B-roll, archival footage, you know, things like that. And so I think with me, I was comfortable in sharing this because I knew its purpose. I knew that it was not just going to be in anyone's hands. And I truly believe that, you know, for me personally, my silence was not going to protect me. I think sharing my truth gave me the strength to be able to confidently, you know, walk in that, and for me to own what my experience was, and grow from it, you know, ultimately to heal from it. So it's not saying it's a perfect route for every survivor out there, but for me, it was definitely one of the best things that I could have ever done.
But, you know, because you look at the whole Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. It's like until that one person stands up and comes out, and then you hear all these other people coming out and say, yeah, that happened to me. And yeah, so there is a power to it. I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
So, you know what I loved? I loved Demons.
Oh, thank you.
I just thought that was so, you all got to see that on Amazon Prime. But to dedicate it to 911 dispatch workers, and the way you brought that in and then ended it, I was just like, wow, you don't think about that.
No,
that about people's jobs.
Yeah, that came about. I came across a podcast called In the Trenches, and they did a Facebook post, and they asked 911 dispatchers to share 150 characters of their worst phone call. And I was just like, and I just opened my laptop and I start writing. So I wrote Demons in one sitting on my lunch break at work. I'm always writing like when I'm not supposed to be writing. I'm just like always writing. I'm not supposed to be writing. But I wrote it, and yeah, like that literally just, I was like, this story, I have to tell it. And I had a cousin who was friends with the dispatcher. I sent her the script because I was like, I want this to be accurate. You know, I've seen 911 shows and movies that were just like, this is not how it is. And I sent it to her. She was like, this is painfully accurate. She helped me with the art direction as well. You know, we turned a cubicle into a dispatch center, with like the lighting and like the maps, and like she let me know like what, you know, how things would be staged. And she did let me know that there were on-site therapists as well, so it was realistic. And yeah, we shot that in 4 days, 2 weekends with the team in Chicago. And yeah, that it came together so quickly. Chan directed that one.
That was nice.
Yeah,
that was nice. So male masculinity. I'm moving through her film. Like I said, we need a retrospective. Maybe
we can move past Man Up. That one's on a long pause. Yeah. So
I like the topic though.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. It's animated films are really hard to get going. There's so much that goes into animation, and even with a budget, just like, yeah, we stalled that one because
I wouldn't even tackle it, but I love it, and I think that is the way to deal with that topic.
Yeah,
I think that would really draw folk in. So hopefully that will come back on. So folks, she needs money for that one. Come on.
I don't need money. I need time. You know, like I need time. Animation, if you don't have a full studio working on it, you
Bruce
know.
Smith. Bruce Smith. You know, we're gonna actually. I'll tell you. Well, next year we got some things coming up with animation. So
Great. Yeah.
Great.
We could definitely talk about the podcast though. I don't think we
that was moving to that next. Okay. So let's talk about your podcast, the MicroBudget Indie Filmmakers Podcast.
Yeah.
So give me some of the things you talk about, why you started it, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So the MicroBudget Indie Filmmakers Podcast is my podcast that is on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. It is a 3-season, 15-episode podcast about micro-budget independent filmmaking. There are no more episodes beyond the 15 episodes. It is 3 seasons. Season 1 covers your script breakdown, your budget, micro-budget hacks and resources. Season 2 covers your shoot schedule, your production schedule, your post-production schedule. Season and casting. Season 3, the final season, covers marketing, distribution, tax write-offs, and branding yourself. So I take filmmakers through my independent film process from start to finish, and each season has a corresponding workbook where in the podcast, it announces the email that you can reach out to get the workbook. It's only $10, and it has all of my worksheets, resources, templates. Filmmakers have used the podcast and actually gone on to like make their own films. And I started that because I would teach micro-budget workshops, but I started getting asked to do that so much, and I couldn't keep up with also being a filmmaker and also having a job and also teaching the workshop. So I was like, I'll put it in a podcast, and that's where we're at with it. We're on Twitter as well. We just reached 1,000 followers, _microbudget pod. And it's a great community of filmmakers that, you know, we do film challenges and share resources. And it's just, honestly, I love the podcast community that's grown from this. But that's the podcast, and that's what it's about. And every indie filmmaker who's looking to get into filmmaking should stream this for sure. Excuse me. Oh no, did I lose you?
Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry.
No worries.
This is, girl, we trying to work this out here. Thing behind the scenes stuff. Well, I just got hip to it, but I'm in there now. I love it. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So what are some basic obstacles for filmmakers to overcome during making independent films? What are some basic obstacles for those starting off?
Stop dreaming big. Like, I just, you know, people, I'm like, when you're dreaming your sleep, wake up, be realistic about what you actually have. I talk to so many filmmakers who are just depressed about not being able to get their script off the ground. And in the first like 4 pages, there's like a helicopter and a mansion and like a car chase. And like, I'm like, you have $12. What are you doing? And so I think that the more we open our minds to just writing, what's the most amazing thing that you can make in one room with 4 characters? What happens? There's some crazy things that can happen at a dinner table. There's some crazy things that can happen in the front seat of a car. How can you make a silent film? You know, like, let's think about all of the ways that we can do this on a nimble scale. And what I encourage filmmakers to do is take those small indie films, get them into local film festivals. Stop submitting your films to Sundance and Cannes and then being depressed about your $20 film not getting in. No, go to local indie film festivals that prioritize and showcase, you know, those indie filmmakers. Meet other filmmakers there. Grow your teams. Grow your resources. I've met some of the best DPs I've worked with at film festivals. I saw their film, they saw my film, and we're like, let's make something. And then we grew that together. And then we meet other filmmakers at festivals, and we just grow and grow and grow. Start small, start tangible. And there's nothing more incredible than finishing a film and getting it out there. I don't care how small it is, you know, just get out there and use the resources that you have available to you. That's like rule number 1. And I will preach that until I'm blue in the face. Stop starting here. Like literally just start with what you have. Start with what you have.
Well, one of the things you mentioned early on in this conversation was when you were in film school, you developed a team. And that's what a lot of students don't do when they're in film school, because that team, I look at the way Spike Lee started with his team.
Right.
And everybody grew and went their, separate directions from there and grew bigger and, better at what they do. But that's one of the things, just kind of cultivating and growing your peeps.
Yeah, I call it my film tribe. I have my film tribe in Atlanta. I've got my go-to film tribe in Chicago. I'm building one in Brooklyn. And anytime that there's opportunities, I go to my teams. And I think it's important to foster that sense of community as well. There's, people who are freelancing and, do this work to sustain themselves, they're likely not going to be able to collaborate. They're going to need monetary compensation. But then you have the filmmakers like me who work full-time jobs and make films on weekends and make films with our vacation time. And so our basic needs are met. So it's okay for me to, volunteer my resources. This filmmaker is a cinematographer. They want to jump on something. This filmmaker's an editor. It's about collaborating for the sake of portfolio building as well. I think that has to be top of mind, because a lot of people I'll never look at filmmaking as lucrative. I just won't do it. That's just, if you're in it for the money, I don't know what to tell you, but we are not the same type of filmmaker. So I also am always telling filmmakers, barter. I have exchanged production books where I did your entire script breakdown, budget, distribution plan, schedules, contracts, all of that for script supervising, or you shoot my film, I will edit yours. It's barter. It's the way to barter your resources as well, and use your skill sets. And even down to with booking locations. I'm the next documentary that I'm doing, I got a 75% discount on this location because I'm teaching film workshops and hosting the screening at that location and bringing them more business. There's a way to just navigate this with the resources you have, with the skills that you have, see what's possible. And again, think small, think tangible. I'll never have my crew, on a project for 4 or 5 months of shooting, let's see what we could shoot in a day. Let's see what we could do in a weekend. Do these have to be 12-hour days? Can they be 5-hour days? Let's be cognizant of what we're asking people to do as well. And I put all of this in my podcast, literally all of it's there. So if you are an independent filmmaker looking to get into filmmaking, if you're a writer, if you're an actor, just looking to create your own work, the podcast is going to be a really great resource for you.
And tell folks how they can find the podcast.
Yes. Well, I will start by saying follow us on Twitter, _MicroBudget pod. You're going to connect with a lot of filmmakers there. In the link in the bio, it'll say where all of the episodes are streaming, different platforms. So please follow us on Twitter. That is the best way to get a hold of our podcast.
Mm-hmm. So your mantra is micro filmmaking. Start small, think, small scenes. Well, because you do. I mean, that's what I did on my first baby. Mm-hmm. Was on hair, a docudrama on hair, and like you said, the weekend.
Yeah,
the weekend, and you get people that you've worked for with the different skill sets, and just bring them aboard.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing your budgets, are you doing in kind for the people that or are you actually? I know, because I know you're trying to do a weekend or whatever, but I'm at that point now. I guess because the older I get, it's I want to pay people, even though it's a weekend. So I really want to. I mean, how do you get around that? Because I know it's barter, I know it's exchange, but I still want to get to the point where I can just have the money,
Well, for me, it depends on the project. My short films are a completely different structure than my docs. My short films don't make any money. So I'm upfront with filmmakers. If you want to get on this project, here's the deck that outlines the production schedule, the day that you're going to get footage for your reel and IMDb credit. Here's our film festival distribution list. These are all the festivals we're going to submit the film to. And then once we're done with the festival circuit, this is a platform that we're going to stream it on. So a lot of filmmakers that I work with, if it's a assistant camera operator who always wanted the opportunity to DP, I'll work with them. I have filmmakers who reach out to me all the time and are like, I'm a gaffer, I'm a sound mixer. Are you working on anything? You know, here's a project for you. So with my short films, I'm very transparent up front. I share everything with my team. Like, I have $5,000. This is going toward location, feeding you all, transportation, props, and distribution. You know, this is where it's going. I don't have money to pay you in this. If you want to jump on board, I ain't got money for you. Your contract is going to say IMDb credit in festivals and copy for your reel. Like, that's what it is. With my documentary films, those are usually distributed to university libraries and film schools, and schools, not just film schools, schools will license the films. And so what I'll put in the contracts is people will get a percentage of net sales. So after the distributor takes a cut, then I will take the remaining and divide it amongst my team according to their contracts. So for Black Feminists, it's really nice because we've been distributing for about 3 years now, and my team is still on residuals for that. As long as it's getting distributed, you know, sometimes it's a $10 payment, sometimes it's a $100 payment, depending on the schools that license it. So yeah, that's pretty much, that's how I go about it. I'm very transparent. Like, if you're trying to be on a part, if you're trying to be in my films, understand, like, I am not rich. If I'm working with an entity, a production company that brings me in, then I can pay my team, you know, because I'm given a substantial budget. Most of my films I self-fund out of pocket. You know, I'm dumping out my piggy bank. So no, I can't pay your day rate. But the beautiful thing is that filmmakers come to me and ask me to be a part of the projects now. Like, it's very humbling, but it's great because people see, Ava DuVernay said this, do your own thing, be on your own train, and people will gravitate toward you because they want to be a part of what you're doing. Right. And all the films that I'm doing and, you know, seeing it in festivals, a lot of filmmakers are like, how do I get on your next project? Like, how can I work on this? So that's how I go about it. Just being transparent and upfront, and trying not to shoot during the week, so that's open for filmmakers to do paid work if necessary. Trying not to have, like, you know, again, shoot days or shoot principals or photography that is like really, really long and can keep them away from potential paid gigs. All of those things are things that I consider.
So, you know, it's ideal and a creative person's dream to just do you know, and work on your passion projects without having to serve the 9-to-5 jobs and, you know, the jobs that pay the bills. When do you think, because you do that balance, even though you're on the lunch break, you're doing your thing, but when do you think you'll be able to make that shift? Is it when Ava calls you, or, I mean?
Well, a lot of people assume that I want to make that shift. You know, like, for me, I'm, before I was in advertising production as my career, I was working as an office manager, and that was beautiful. I was able to use the offices for production meetings. You know, it was really great. And before that, I was working restaurants, so I'd work nights and my days were free for auditions, for meetings, for whatever. I now, after I graduated from film school with a reel, a advertising agency in Chicago saw my reel and asked me to come in, and months later I was hired as an associate producer. I've moved up to producer since then. I've been at 4 different agencies, and commercial production, you know, it pays my bills. And personally speaking, I don't want to rely on my films for my paycheck, because then it becomes about monetizing my craft. Right now, I can make a film for $5,000, distribute it to whoever I want to, however I want to. If I want to take more time on it, I can. And it's not like I got to get this film out here and sell it because I have rent to pay. So for me, being able to have full autonomy over my work, tell the stories that I want to tell. You know, when we don't talk about how when Ava or when studios call, they've got the final say in what you put out. It's your story, but it's also their contract. So with me, I am the captain of my ship at all times. You know, I have final say in all creative. I choose the teams that I bring on. I choose the process, and money is not, you know, a part of that.
What drives you?
Right. And so being able to keep that balance is how I'm able to maintain my creative integrity and full autonomy in my work. So people are like, when are you gonna? I've never been to LA. I don't know when I'm gonna go because I don't have a reason to. But yeah, like what I'm doing is working for me just fine. I do know a lot of filmmakers that, you know, are telling me that I should make the jump, but still are trying to get their first film off the ground. And I'm just like, okay, like, you know, like it's just, you know, I'm good over here with what I'm doing.
That's good to hear. That is good to hear.
Yeah.
I saw on your website, and I'm trying to go through my notes. It was you had different people speaking, and then you have something come up about what is that campaign? Was that a campaign? Oh, I can't find it in my notes, but it's on your website. It's on your website. You may have someone who invented bicycles speaking, or a Black person that invented.
Oh, Black at Work.
Black at Work. I couldn't think of that. Black at Work. What was that? I really love that. It's shot beautifully, and I love the affirmation of people doing what they do and creating.
Yeah, that was for Black History Month for one of the agencies that I used to work for. They just did a campaign centering the dream gap in Black people and seeing Black people seeing themselves in roles that we don't traditionally see ourselves in. So it was like docu style, PSA style kind of thing. We got together and did it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, just lastly, do you feel that through filmmaking you're living your purpose?
Absolutely.
Doing what you're supposed to be doing, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you know, filmmaking is the reason I get out of bed every day. Filmmaking is what keeps a smile on my face. Filmmaking is what allows me to share my truth in the way that I want to tell it. Filmmaking is the medium that I use to drive social change. And so when people say they want to change the world, for me, being a Virgo, being like the very tangible person that I am, I'm like, what are the steps I want to take, you know, to change the world? And for me, that's storytelling. And I think that, you know, I'm truly able to do that with my films in the way that I want to do it. And so I absolutely think that I'm living my purpose.
Well, I am so inspired, impacted by you. And I just found out about you. So for me, when I find out about somebody or something, I want to share it. And so I'm so glad that you shared this time with SABIFF so that we can share you with across the World Wide Web, even though you already have your following and you doing your podcast. But I'm very, very appreciative of you coming on and spending time with us. And seriously, I want to look into that retrospective thing. We're focusing on women this year, so
yeah, we got to absolutely be in touch. Yeah, you've got my number.
And you got to come to San Antonio for real when life gets back to normal.
I do.
But I thank you. Continued blessings to you. Continue to bless us with what you do, and yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks so much,
everyone. I have the website up. Please visit the website. Check out the sisters' work, and you will be inspired. Okay. Thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend, and continue to follow us, and we will continue to follow you as well. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I just want to have everyone to make sure that you continue to follow us, the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. We love bringing new people of African descent, new films of African descent, new voices. We love bringing that through our medium, SABIFF.TV. This is a medium that you can rent our theaters. So if you're interested in having a theater screening virtually, hit us up. Let us know at SABIFF.TV. We are going to be moving every month. We will be having a screening. And then we're moving to our big festival, September 30th through October 1st. So make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and other social media, and just continue to support Black independent film, because I always keep saying it matters. It matters. Your images, your voices, your stories are valid, and you must continue to get that out to the airways and the streamways. Everybody take care. Thanks again for joining us, and hit us. We will be again next month showing another film. So definitely catch us at sabiff.tv. Take care. Be safe.